Vucevic from the Bulls to the Warriors is in play. Very realistic. However, it sounds like the Chicago Bulls won a first-round pick. The Golden State Warriors kind of shrugging their shoulders right now. What are they going to do? What should they do as the deadline is closing in on a week? It's today's Locked On Warriors.
Who can stop Steph Curry?
Hopefully we'll never find out.
There's not many defenses in the world that can stop him.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome into Locked On Warriors. Let's break down some Golden State Warriors as they try to make a late season, or I guess at this point, the mid-season push as the All-Star game is coming up at Chase. A lot to talk about surrounding the Golden State Warriors, some of it positive, and a lot of it right now below average. The Warriors sit one game below 500 on the season. This is Locked On Warriors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Ways that you can check out the show. YouTube, if you're chilling with us right now on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Golden State Warriors content comes your way Monday through Friday and after games. Also, wherever you get your audio podcast, that's Apple, that's Spotify. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with the FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you will score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Charlie Walter. I worked for 95.7 The Game. That's the flagship of the Golden State Warriors. Also cover their title run for CBS News Bay Area. Evan Giddings right now at 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. That is the flagship of the Warriors, and he also covers the St. Mary's Gales, one of the voices of the Gales on the radio. Ev, how we doing, man? Let's talk some Dubs.
Yeah, let's get into it, Chuck. What's going on, man? I know it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride, but things aren't all bad, right? I mean, you got a win here, a loss there. I know the Lakers got people down, but are people really that demoralized?
I mean, it's not good when you're a franchise that's used to winning and winning at a very high clip. When you lose more than you win heading into February. It's not where we wanted to be, but let's get realistic. Where we were at the offseason and what the Warriors added, it's probably right around what we thought. We just hoped that, it was 3 or 4 games above, and then we got the mirage at the beginning of the season, which obviously at this point seems to not be what the Warriors are. But a lot to get into on today's show. I want to get into Vucevic because as of right now, it sounds like the Warriors are seriously making a push. It's just about negotiations and whether the Warriors want to depart with what the Bulls are asking for. Also, Steph Curry is the only superstar in the league that doesn't have a certified number 2. This a quote according to Kendrick Perkins. Is that true? We're going to debate it. And then also the reason why the Warriors are backed into a corner right now, it really is as simple as a lot of money is coming from the top. We're going to compare it to some other teams. So let's start off with Vucevic. The simple article that I read, this is Stein from ESPN saying that the Bulls want a first-round pick in exchange for the former All-Star center, Nikola Vucevic. The Warriors have been at the front of the line in terms of potential Vucevic suitors for weeks, but in a 10-20 funk that stuck them at 11 in the West, they've been unwilling to surrender more than second-round draft capital. You hear this, and you hear that all it's going to take is first-round draft capital for Vucevic. Is it, what are you waiting for? Or is it, all right, maybe they're wise right now?
I don't think the Bulls have anything to really bargain with. So if I'm the Warriors, I understand that you're not in a good place, but if you really want Vucevic, they will eventually want to get rid of him. So I just wait till the price comes down. But I don't know how you felt about this, Chuck. I do think that Quentin Post, I don't know if he specifically alleviated the concerns for that position, but he did highlight how important a stretch 5 could be. And the best one on the market is Vucevic. So I personally would not give up a first-round pick for him. I think his first half has been somewhat of an outlier. He's a good player, but he's not a great rebounder, despite what his numbers would tell you. He's not a great defender. He is, in many ways, a more evolved and polished form of what you'd hope Quentin Post could turn into. So I don't think the Warriors, despite what their record is, are really in any rush. And I don't think the Bulls are going to find a first-round pick for him out there. So if I'm the Warriors, I'm standing pat and hoping that eventually they want to get off him, and they're taking second-round compensation if you really want him that badly.
Yeah, I look at it from a best case, worst case lens, and maybe it's not the best way to break it down, but let's start with the worst case scenario, because I want to put realistic expectations into the world that, sure, not the it shouldn't be the expectation, I guess, but it is a possibility. Let's put it that way. Let's say they give away a 2028 first round pick. I believe they have pretty much every first round pick through the next like 6 years minus one. But let's say 2028 is one of them, which I believe it is. Let's say it turns into a lottery pick. The Warriors struggle. I mean, at this point, it's pretty likely that could turn into a lottery pick. The ping pong ball bounces the Bulls' way. That's the number one pick. And let's say it's a generational one. I have no idea about the prospects coming up in 28, but let's say it's the next Wembanyama already. We got another alien out there. There's two of them. This one, isn't from France. He's Italian. I don't know. But let's say, I mean, that's a lot of ifs, but not an impossible worst case scenario. What's the best case scenario? That's how I answer this question. What is the best case scenario of getting rid of that first round pick, bringing in Vucevic? You get some trade chips or trade capital, I guess, in the offseason. You could work with that contract potentially. And then also he's through contract next season where he could be a part of the team if he makes sense, which a stretch five in the Warriors lineup is always going to make sense. But best case, worst case. I mean, what do you think of that?
I mean, best case, he comes in. I think he helps you get to maybe the top half of the play-in. Like, to me, the remainder of this season, the goal should be to get a home play-in game. I don't have my sights for this team set that high as far as 6 or God forbid even 5. The top 4 are pretty much locked up. So can Vucevic legitimately get you to a home game in the play-in? I'm not so sure about that. I think whatever the rest of this season is going to be determined more so by the players that are hurt right now, Jonathan Kuminga and Draymond Green, than a player like Vucevic coming in. So, I wasn't even considering unprotected. To me, if you gave away a pick, or if you traded a pick, I should say, it would have to be protected, because an unprotected first right now, that's what everyone around the league wants from the Warriors. Like make no doubt about it. The only thing the Warriors have to deal with, both this trade deadline and upcoming summer, that's worth anything of legitimate value, are future unprotected firsts. And so if that value is high around the league, I'm keeping those as close to the vest as possible and not spending them on a 1.5-year rental who's 34 years of age and has frankly not shown himself to be a winning player throughout his career.
At this point, I think you know this, but artificial intelligence, especially on the social media apps, is out of control on the internet.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. The articles written nowadays, I mean, they are in bulk. And then at the very bottom, it says powered by AI. And you're like, okay, AI is just coming up with articles nowadays. My algorithm, I got, an old man making milkshakes at this point. It's actually very wholesome. I know one of the listeners out there is like, I know that guy, Milkshake Monday. But I was getting the Breaking Bad algorithms for a while, just clips every single day, sends you weird stuff. I got one today.
Okay.
It was the Golden State Warriors. It was an article, and it says the Golden State Warriors may consider trading Draymond Green to the Chicago Bulls to acquire star guard Zach LaVine. And I'm just listening to this AI, and I'm like, Draymond Green for Zach LaVine? Like, are we looking at the wrong trade all along? The Vucevic one? Are we looking at the wrong member of the Bulls, or is AI not that smart?
Well, when you sent me this, I tried to actually put on the thinking cap. All right, how would we actually make sense of this? And that is a player that if you could get without giving up Draymond, Wiggins, or Kuminga, I think it would have to involve one of the three, whatever order. That would be someone I would consider giving up a first round pick for, because he would give you the scoring that you currently do not have. And I don't think LaVine is that good of a player, but if you're going to go in on a scoring type of guard, he's probably the best one out there you can get. And you're going to have him for a couple more years. So you're kind of locking yourself into him then anyways. And that first round pick doesn't become as important. But again, Chuck, just throwing picks away willy-nilly is not really a sound strategy. Like, for example, this year, in 2020, the Oklahoma City Thunder acquired a Philadelphia Sixers first-round pick to ship Danny Green out. That first-round pick now looks like it's going to be a top 10 pick. And the Oklahoma City Thunder, who already have a bunch of picks anyways, are going to have a lottery pick just because of a throw-in first-rounder from 5 years ago. So just because you're putting picks and deals and not really thinking about it doesn't mean it can't come back to bite you.
Do you feel like teams are cognizant of that nowadays, whereas maybe 5-10 years ago, I'll ship them, send all the picks over there. Let's send 5 picks and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Paul George, because that's the nature of the NBA. New CBA comes in. that's not the nature anymore. You got to be smart with some of these, assets that you have in the
Yeah, I
seen
think
that
it
at
is.
all?
No, I think you're right. I think it is because of the second apron, which basically means you either have super max contracts on your roster or you have a bunch of cheap labor. You can't really like those middle tier contracts are not as, at least for, I don't know, I would say, top tier players, like you're not going to find as many of them. And there's not as many of those contracts, I think, that'll be out there in the future. So in order to keep your stars, you got to have a bunch of young talent just to legitimately financially make it work. And that means you're going to want a lot of picks. And then you're going to use those picks to go out and get a max player. There's no real middle working class in the NBA now, Chuck.
I want to get into a conversation that was had on ESPN. Kendrick Perkins said that Steph Curry was the only star in the NBA that wasn't surrounded by a bona fide or a legitimate second star. He said the only one in the NBA. Why is that? How have the Warriors gotten into this situation? How are they going to get out? We debate on today's Locked On Warriors.
Forget that. We champs. Why are you starting with that question? We got 4 championships.
Super Bowl 59 is here. It's one game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, betting on the coin toss, what songs are going to be sung at halftime first? Are they going to be wearing a hat? Is the performer Gatorade color? FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you could place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, oh, that's icing on the cake. Download the app, head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's on FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59, Eagles and Chiefs.
I don't give a damn about no damn Drake night.
You want the real reason why the Warriors are backed into a corner right now. I mean, it's so simple. It's staring us right in the face. I look at the Thunder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander makes $35 million this season, $20 million less than Steph Curry. And let's get real, he's better than Steph Curry right now. They're paying Jalen Williams $4 million. That is flexibility for days. And you're talking about the draft picks that they still have. Like, they are in just an incredible spot right now. You compare that to the Warriors. The Warriors right now are paying 55 to Curry, deservingly so. Like, you got to make that crystal clear, right? Deservingly so. He gets all the money in the world, but it puts you in a tough spot. Let's get real. Like, Luka's making 43. So you're paying Curry $55 million. Then you got two $25 million plus guys. And when you have that much money at the top, you have to fill a roster with $7-8 million guys. And that is why we sit here and say, Curry doesn't have good enough players around him. It's simple. It's staring us right in the face. But obviously, some of these rules changed, and it really did affect the Golden State Warriors with everything that's happened in the past few years. I mean, you look at the fact that Jordan Poole would be making in the 30s, I believe, low 30s.
Yep.
And I mean, you're giving $40+ million to a combination of Dennis, Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield, and yeah.
I mean, it's a tough place to be. And that's why, as much as I understand why they tried to get under the first apron this year so they could aggregate trades, it actually is kind of hard to move a bunch of players for one, because you're going to have to fill out the remainder of your roster. And it's going to be more guys. I know he's been really good, but it's going to be more Quentin Post. It's going to be the Reese Beekmans. It's going to be G League.
Beekman's not even a Warrior anymore. They traded him away in the Nets deal, right?
No, that's right. But it's going to be, more.
Goodbye, sir. Yeah, no, it's going to be Kevin Knox is going to be coming up to the joy of a lot of the fans. He's been killing it in the G.
I was going to say, I'm
having Kevin Dana on.
Him.
Yeah, I'm having Kevin Dana on Wednesday, and I'm going to ask all about Knox because I covered Kevin at Kentucky, and he was more hyped up than Shai going into the NBA. And look at Shai, look at Knox, 6 years into their career or whatever it is. But he's intriguing. I think he's averaging like 22 and 9, and he looked aggressive in the G League. Doris Burke was, Kevin Knox, or Summer League, I guess. Kevin Knox is going after boards.
He should. He's got 5 years on these guys. Well, you see, like Pat Spencer, I think, just had a 30 burger the other night for Santa Cruz. So, they got some players, but those are going to be the kinds of guys that are filling out the back end of your roster if you're going to try and aggregate deals.
Is that fine though? Because the Warriors do seem to play 11 deep sometimes. You can get by with 9, 8.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who the player is for. Again, like I think that Schroeder's someone they should absolutely look to involve in a deal at the deadline. GP2 is an expiring. I think Looney might be as well. Slow-Mo and Hield are tradable contracts, and for playoff basketball teams, like someone might actually want a Buddy Hield that could come in off the bench and just spray and pray. Someone actually might want a veteran presence like Kyle Anderson to kind of beef up their front court. I think the Warriors are looking a lot closer to sellers than they are buyers at the deadline. And while we're talking about Vucevic or maybe Zach LaVine or some of these other guys, I think the Warriors have to start thinking about who they can get off of for this upcoming summer if they're really going to make a run at a big fish, because their books are fine, but they need to find a way, if they are legitimately going to pounce with some of these first round picks, to go out and get some of these dudes. So to me, I would try and focus more on who they could sell off as opposed to acquire, because the rest of the season is not looking that interesting anyways, Chuck.
Yeah, I mean, you are not wrong there whatsoever. I want to get into some net rankings in a second. I know I sent you this, and there were some ones that stuck out to me. I want to hear your thoughts on that. It's the Warriors on/off the floor net rankings, basically how good the team is, when a player's on the floor, off the floor, their offensive ratings, their defensive ratings. We'll break down the analytics. We'll go Poindexter in just a minute. But I want to get into something that Kendrick Perkins said, saying, quote, on First Take, I think it was First Take, one of those shows. Yep. Steph is the only superstar in the league that doesn't have a certified number 2. Let me start there. In a short little summarization, true or false? The only superstar in the league that doesn't have a number 2. Thinking in my head, because he said Jokic with Jamal Murray as his star number 2.
Yeah. I was about to say contenders, but the Warriors aren't a contender. A player on a supermax deal, like a veteran supermax deal, he is correct. Yeah, I don't think any other player that makes above $50 million can boast a situation, not boast, but can basically have a situation as poor as Steph. So I would say yes.
Okay. I was laughing. Bob Myers is on that panel. So he's on the panel. It's like the hot dog car scene, and I think he should leave with Tim Robinson.
Jump ship.
Who did this? He's sitting there. They're like, why is Steph the only superstar in the league that doesn't have a certified number 2? Like, how did this happen? Who is involved in this? Like, why does he? And Bob Myers is just sitting right there. Like, this is a little bit awkward that I'm involved in this. I know all the details.
Did you buy Stephen A's explanation?
He said it's Steph Curry is cooperative. Right? That Steph Curry essentially is, I have the full quote. Let's pop it up for those on YouTube. He's being cooperative. He's not being a headache or saying, I'm not happy with this, I need more. We know LeBron does it. That's not Steph.
I think he's correct. Both of them are correct, honestly. Like, Kendrick Perkins is right that he does not have a second running mate. And that is on the front office, but it's also on Curry, because number one, Steph has played at such a high level for a long time that the precipitous drop in his points per game, his overall ability to provide on a high level on a night-to-night basis, like that's taken a bit of a decline really since last year's All-Star break. We saw a bit of this, I think, when he was gassed towards the end of last year, but this year it's kind of stuck. So number one, I think this summer the front office believed that Curry, and it was a bit gullible, was going to be able to stay at that 27 to 30 point per game range that he was 2 years ago. And I think that they just really put the cart before the horse and had too high of expectation for a 36-year-old point guard. And yeah, they didn't provide him enough help, but the entire season is built on Steph being a certified, bona fide all-star, all-NBA caliber player. And I just don't think it's fair to expect someone of his age with that much mileage to do that anymore. You saw on Saturday with the Lakers, LeBron James is great. He's not the best player on their team if they're winning anything of legitimacy. It's Anthony Davis, who's 9 years younger than he is. So they failed to find a running mate for Steph Curry, but it's not something that they didn't do this summer. Like, they haven't found one for a while. So I think Steph is as competitive as ever. He wants to be that dude, but he's coming to the realization that I think he can't be that guy, that alpha for a championship level team anymore.
Yeah, and I mean the running mate in a sense, in a Robin-like sense, scoring wise, could have been Jordan Poole. We all know what happens with that. And then you're talking $50+ million being given to Andrew Wiggins and Draymond Green, who combined are excellent. Individually, they're excellent, but neither of them are like that guy. You know, when it comes to give this guy the rock, he's gonna get a bucket. Wiggins will give you 17 sneaky points almost every single night. He'll give you incredible defense, but just that pop. I mean, I've looked at the graphics before where Jordan Poole in his last 2 seasons with the Warriors had, I think, 23 games above 30 points. I mean, how many games does Wiggins give? You know, once, twice a season?
Yeah, they don't have someone that can put the scoring load on their back for even like a 3 to 4 minute stretch. And that's what Poole, to his credit, could do. And I'm not saying that kind of player away from getting back to a title, Chuck, but I think Wiggins is a winning player. I think Draymond's obviously a winning player, but the amount that Curry has declined this year, yeah, I just think the front office should have accounted for it. They should have seen that eventually he was going to fall from a top 5 or top 10 player beneath that. And you need someone else to kind of be in that range. And either they traded that player away, they misidentified who that player was, or they had too high of expectation for someone like Kuminga to step in and become that player. So, they're in a tough spot. We're honestly, this summer, I think the conversation is going to be around, do the Warriors need a better player than Steph? It's not just a Robin. Like, he might need a Batman, because again, LeBron has a Batman on certain nights. You look at OKC, they got Batman and Robin, but some nights Jalen Williams can carry you. Even Jamal Murray has a 50-point playoff game under his resume. So it's a tough spot for Curry, and I do think he's been a bit cooperative in that.
So, like, what? Oh, someone in the back getting into a little crazy taxi.
They didn't like it, Chuck.
We could all hear that on the podcast. Like, what other 36-year-old in NBA history has been relied on as take out LeBron James? I'd have to look at the age of Michael Jordan, but I want to say by like 36, he was out for the second time. And then came back and was effective at 40.
Chicago when he was 34. No, like no one's been expected to do this. I mean,
no one,
no guard ever has been asked to do as much as Curry has.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely had to factor that in, and that's part of the reason why we stand where we stand. But there's many reasons. You mentioned that Andrew Wiggins is a winning player for the Golden State Warriors. I want to get into some on/off the floor net rankings, to where some very logical, Steph Curry being the best plus guy on the team, some not so illogical. Andrew Wiggins not helping the team per the deep data. Let's talk about it on Locked On Warriors.
Forget that. We champs. Why are you starting with that question? We got 4 championships.
All right, so I teased it before the break. The Dubs do love their analytics. They talked about it all offseason. They go with their models. They check the data, and they're going to do it smart. So I'm going Poindexter here. It's the on the off floor net rankings about midway through the season. First of all, how much merit do you put into these plus minuses, these defensive, offensive ratings, all these numbers?
You definitely have to take into account. Like, I guess I'm more of an eye test first guy, and then you look at the stats afterwards. But over the course of now, 40, 45-ish games, like, they are legit. I mean, if you play enough minutes, the numbers are going to tell you who's helping and who's not.
All right, well, this is where it's interesting. Let's read off some of these. I guess the ones that stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
Steph Curry, the best net rating on the team at +8. Andrew Wiggins, one of the top 3 lowest on the team at -5. I guess Buddy Hield makes sense with the way he's played lately at a -4. Draymond Green makes sense at a +6.8. Second, or one of the top on the team. Let's put it that way. But then you got Trace at a -5.5. Kuminga at a +1. Pajimski at a +5. Moody's a positive player. Waters is a negative player. Looney's just about even. Schroeder's a negative player. Anderson a negative player. Peyton positive. Guy Santos a +10.1 to lead the way.
He's their best
So
player.
what sticks out to you, man, when you see that the deep data there?
I was a bit surprised to see the Wiggins number because to me, I think he's been more a part of the solution than the problem for the Warriors this season. And a -5 is not insignificant. Like, again, that's worse than Buddy Hield. And Buddy Hield has been a really difficult player to watch this season for Golden State. The other one that I was a bit surprised at how high he is would be Pajemski because of how poorly he struggled
Mhm.
at the beginning of the year. But during his poor shooting stretch, they're also winning a lot of basketball games. So I think some of it is a product of kind of the stretch in which they played, and Pods has been out for a while when the Warriors have been struggling.
Wiggins having to lead the bench.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Draymond being as high as he is also a little bit of a surprise to me. I think he's been good this year, not great. The one that does not shock me is Dennis Schroeder. He's been just brutal. And I know they haven't been terrible since he joined the team, winning and losing wise, but gosh, he has had very few good games for them. What about
Yeah.
you?
I mean, if you just pick out the numbers alone and you use this to a science, and let's say you got rid of Andrew Wiggins rotation, be crazy based off numbers. But
Yeah.
let's do the experiment. Your 8-man rotation of positive players would be Curry, it would be Draymond, it would be Kuminga, it would be Pajemski, it would be Moody, it would be Looney, it would be Peyton, and it would be Santos. That would be the team that you're running out there. So if you really want to go with the data, Warriors, like you say, you love the data. I
Yeah.
don't know how deep of a dive this is. That would be your 8 that you're giving the most minutes. Post was actually up there too.
No,
Where's your
it's funny because I think a lot of fans would actually like that lineup because you're seeing a lot of Kuminga and Moody, and you're not seeing Buddy Hield, you're not seeing Lindy Waters, you're not seeing even TJD. Like you're seeing more of the fan favorites. So I guess that's a positive for people that the players who people are clamoring for, those have been the ones that have been, I guess, more helpful according to net on off this season.
any possibility that Andrew Wiggins is tied to a deal at the All-Star or at the trade deadline in your opinion?
No, no. I think the Warriors really like what he's done this season. I think he's had a good year for them, despite what that number just showed. It's a
Friendly
little bit,
deal.
yeah, it hasn't been great, but I think it's a little misleading. I think Wiggins has been good for him this season. He's also at a decent number that they could use to trade this offseason. So to me, he's more of an asset for them, both playing on the court and also as a trade piece during the summer.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing is if you did want to get draft capital in return, you look at a team like, granted, their picks probably wouldn't be good at all, but you look at Cleveland. Could they use another wing and bring Wiggins in there to really make them a surefire title contender? Would they want him? Would OKC potentially want him? Would some of these teams that have the room to bring him in there want him and give you some of the capital that they likely have from sucking for years?
Yeah, well, that's why I think that like you could fetch something for Wiggins. Like that negative 5.1 is not necessarily what the rest of the league thinks of him. And I do think there would be teams that were willing to give up, let's say, like expiring contracts and attach a first round pick or lightly protected first round pick for Wiggins. I do think there are teams out there that would do that because he's a two-way player. Like those players help you win playoff games. And I know we saw it a couple of years ago, but if the Warriors got into a play-in scenario or a postseason series scenario, Andrew Wiggins would have to be one of their better players. So I do think there'd be a market for him if they decided to sell.
No doubt. Evan Giddings, when's the next time we can hear you on the Gales call?
Oh, the Gales. They're going to be back this upcoming weekend on Saturday. I'm also doing a little bit of work for Santa Clara women's, and then Santa Clara and the rest of the WCC baseball schedule starts in about 2 weeks. So staying busy, but I'll be doing Warriors pre and post until then.
Heck yeah. You can hear him on 95.7 The Game. One of the dudes, how's Lorenzo Neal doing over at the station?
Oh, Lowe's a little down after the Chargers loss. I mean, you know how it is, just getting eliminated from the postseason. But he's still got the biggest biceps I've ever seen on a 5'9" man, and he's doing fantastic.
Yeah, I'll never forget the day he showed up to a shift and had about 9 pounds of macaroni and cheese. I'm like, how do you look like that, man? He's like, what are you talking about? Protein, brother. It's protein. One of the all-time great ones. Evan Giddings as well. You can hear him on 95.7 The Game. Thanks for joining the show, my man.